17th century, King James I of England issued a series of charters that would shape the trajectory of England's global ambitions. Among the most significant was the First Charter of Virginia in 1606, which authorized the establishment of colonies in the New World, signed by prominent figures such as Sir Thomas Gates, Sir George Somers, Richard Hakluyt, and Edward Maria Wingfield. The charter set the framework for colonization, exploration, and exploitation. It created an early blueprint for the financial, political, and social systems that would underpin England's colonial empire, paving the way for institutions and practices that continue to influence global economic systems today. These charters were more than administrative tools. They represented a strategic alliance between the crown, investors, and religious entities. The Virginia Company of London, a joint stock company formed under the 1606 Charter, attracted a wide range of investors, including Sir Thomas Smythe, who served as treasurer, and Bartholomew Gosnold, one of the key visionaries of the Jamestown settlement. These figures were joined by military leaders, merchants, and clergy, all united by a shared ambition to extract wealth from the Americas. The financial engine of colonization. The joint stock model was revolutionary for its time, allowing investors to pool resources and spread risks. For the Virginia Company, this meant funding transatlantic voyages, establishing settlements, and cultivating cash crops like tobacco in particular became the economic cornerstone of the early colonies, driving the demand for labor and setting the stage for one of history's most brutal systems of exploitation: the transatlantic slave trade. Initially, the labor demands of the colonies were met through indentured servitude. In this system, European workers would commit to years of service in exchange for passage to the New World. However, as the profitability of tobacco skyrocketed, planters sought a more permanent and cost-effective labor source. This shift led to the enslavement of Africans, forcibly transported across the Atlantic in a trade that became a central pillar of the colonial economy. Religious justification and economic alignment. Religious institutions played a crucial role in supporting and legitimizing these ventures. The Church of England, in particular, framed colonization as a divine mission to civilize and convert indigenous populations. Figures like Richard Hakluyt championed this narrative, arguing that the expansion of Christianity justified the establishment of colonies. At the same time, these religious justifications masked the economic motivations of colonization, creating a moral framework that permitted the exploitation of both land and people. One enduring legacy of this intersection between religion and economics is the Bible publishing industry. During the colonial era, missionary efforts were closely tied to the dissemination of Bibles, which served both spiritual and cultural imperialist purposes. Today, Bible publishing remains a multi-billion-dollar industry, an echo of the colonial systems that intertwine faith and finance. This raises critical questions about whether the profits generated by such industries could be directed toward reparations for the descendants of those who were enslaved. The role of fraternal organizations, such as the Freemasons, also played a significant part in the colonial enterprise. corporations and colonial companies, creating a web of influence that extended from the old world to the new. For example, individuals connected to early Masonic networks likely contributed to the Virginia Company's operations. Although records from this period are sparse, the eventual establishment of Masonic lodges in colonial America, such as the Grand Lodge of Virginia in 1717, illustrates the enduring influence of these fraternal organizations in shaping the economic and political landscape of the colonies.
The modern legacy of colonial wealth. The systems established under King James I's charters have left an indelible mark on modern economic structures. The wealth generated from colonial enterprises fueled the development of Britain's financial institutions, including banks and trading companies, many of which have direct ties to the slave trade. The Church of England, which invested in and profited from these ventures, continues to wield significant economic and social influence. Moreover, industries like Bible publishing, which grew alongside colonial missionary efforts, remain profitable to this day. The enduring success of these industries underscores the continuity of economic systems that originated in colonial exploitation. Could these profits be used to address historical injustices? Could reparations for the descendants of enslaved individuals be funded, at least in part, through the revenues of such industries? Following the money. This book seeks to unravel the financial and institutional threads that connect the issuance of King James I's charters to the present day. By following the money, it reveals how early colonial ventures were not isolated historical phenomena, but the foundation of enduring economic systems. It examines the roles of investors like Sir Thomas Smythe, institutions like the Virginia Company and the Church of England, and organizations like the Freemasons, exposing how their actions shape both the past and the present. At the same time, this narrative centers on the human cost of these systems. Millions of Africans were enslaved and transported across the Atlantic, their lives and labor fueling the profits of investors and institutions. Indigenous populations were displaced and devastated, and their lands were transformed into plantations and settlements. By exploring these stories alongside the financial mechanisms of exploitation. This book confronts the moral and economic debts of history. Through this examination, we are called not only to understand the past, but to grapple with its legacies. How can the wealth generated by colonial systems be reconciled with the human suffering they caused? What steps can be taken to address these enduring